Hello, and thank you for attending our webinar on governance and scaling of an RPA program. My name is Rick Noack. I'm with the Intelligent Automation Practice for Invent in North America. In this webinar, we'll be talking about automation today and specifically what it takes to achieve scale in a automation and RPA program. The topics that we'll be covering is going to be a look at what is RPA and intelligent automation, and specifically some of the thoughts that we need to apply to that for governance and scale. How to maximize your RPA through scale, looking at some of the details. Scaling your COE, making sure that we have good solid governance around our RPA program and what's important to look at as we try to build it up larger. Scaling opportunities, that is a matter of finding things that can be automated. And then scaling value and ROI, because as we deliver RPA and automation, we're looking to get value back from the program, and how do we ensure that as we go along. So at a high level, what is RPA? So RPA bots are virtual employees programmed to perform repeatable tasks. An RPA bot sits on top of the user interface on a computer or virtual machine, and it interacts with the same programs and the same functionality that a user was, and follows a rules-based process to interact with screens and documents to perform what would otherwise be tedious and repetitive tasks. RPA gives us a benefit that it is scalable and very flexible. So once we teach a bot how to do a task, it can repeat that task and repeat that task at scale. It gives us additional accuracy and quality as long as the bot is trained right. It can always follow the same set of rules, always get its inputs correct. It gives us productivity and efficiency because we're automating work that would otherwise be tedious tasks performed by people. RPA comes with user level security. That means that a bot functions under the same accounts and same account settings as a user would, because it interacts the same way with applications that a user would. So it makes it really easy to set up security using mechanisms that are already in place. Bots give us advanced analytics, which means that as a bot runs, almost any piece of data that it interacts with, it can record that data and be used later to see how processes run, see which path your processes take, and sometimes even learn a little bit about our processes. And we have a significant cost savings because bots are doing tasks that oftentimes take a lot of human interaction. It frees up our human resources to do other tasks and benefits us through productivity. So because RPA works through user interfaces and RPA performs repeatable rules-based tasks, there's a couple of areas where RPA can be applied to do tasks really well. RPA works really well in Microsoft Excel-based tasks where somebody might be extracting some data from SAP or PeopleSoft or somewhere, and then aggregating that data or working on it, building reports and submitting information back into other systems. RPA can have, an RPA bot can have its own email address, so it can open email and process attachments, or create emails and send out emails with attachments. Working in most of your enterprise applications, SAP, PeopleSoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, pretty much any application that humans work in, the bot can work in. It follows simple rules-based processes. So if you have, if you can set a flow chart to a process, it's probably a good process for RPA to do. Work that is prone to human error, and a really good example of that is sometimes we have systems that aren't integrated, so you have humans that are reading information out of one system and inputting it into another. That's a place where human error can occur. When a bot reads data and writes it somewhere else, it doesn't forget or transpose digits. It does exactly as it's supposed to. Because it's a computer, Bot is really good at making calculations and thousands of them very quickly if needed. Places where you have to fill in or read forms or submit forms, reading data off the web, like plugging into a vendor portal and extracting information about unpaid invoices or anything like that. Updates between disconnected systems. A lot of times RPA can fill the gap between systems that can't pull data from one to the other. The RPA can open one, extract data, go into the other one, enter it in, and you don't even need APIs or special functionality for that. Pulling data from documents, or doing audits and reconciliations. If you have a need to look through a lot of information and make decisions or determinations or look for specific patterns, those are all places where RPA can help. So hopefully this spurs a little bit of thought of where RPA can be applied. But RPA also brings another consideration to it, and that is that while you are creating software, an RPA bot is a form of software, it is also technology that is functioning much more like a user, because RPA sits on top of those other systems that you want to automate. So in traditional software development, we create software for users, but RPA, we're creating new users for existing software. So planning for RPA means planning for that new type of user and the new type of experience. So RPA bots will work like humans because they do have regular user accounts that are set up on their desktops. They'll get assigned an email address. They'll use the same permission settings getting into software. You'll have a software license for whatever software that the client uses. It'll use the bot uses. It will use the same license as you would use to license other users, and follow many of the same security access controls. The bot's activities are tracked and audited just like any other users of a system. When implementing RPA, it's important also to understand that RPA doesn't require 100% success to be successful. And what we mean by that is, if you have a particular task like processing invoices, most of the time processing invoices might be spent on the 90% of invoices that are that match up with the purchase orders and are easily just entered into systems. And the bot can turn over that other 10% that have exceptions, where the totals don't match, or there might be disputes in the invoice. That can be turned over to people. So unlike other software where we expect 100% of inputs to always create an output, the bot can receive the work that it needs to do, and anything that it doesn't understand, it can hand back over to a human to complete that bit. And bots do need to be managed. Just like people, we will typically have bot managers that will make sure that the bot is doing the work that needs to be done, and to handle those exceptions that the bot puts out there. When creating RPA bots, we also want to consider that bots are still software. So we do want to run through the same basic development controls as with software development lifecycle that you will use to make other software. That means that before you create a task for a bot to do, we need to put good standards and practices in place. We need to make sure that we've documented the requirements for that particular task. Have good testing procedures. So once the bot is created, how are you going to verify that it does its task and does it well and doesn't get tripped up by exceptions? We still need to build solid security controls against hacking. So for example, the actual RPA software itself in the back end, we need to establish separation of duties and make sure that we've set up administrative and developer and user accounts for that software. So these are things that do need to be planned in terms of building up your basic RPA practice. But the main point that we're getting into in the webinar is once you have this RPA in place and understand what it can do, typically an organization will go through a very similar journey. You may start off with a proof of concept or a pilot implementation in which you're creating 1 or 2 RPA bots to get the wheels rolling and see that the technology works. But after that first implementation, and after we see that RPA does work for our organization, it's also then important to build scale rather quickly, because for each bot that gets implemented, the organization is gaining productivity and gaining savings through that productivity that we want to realize. So it's oftentimes a difficult jump to make it from that pilot implementation into building some form of scale, getting to the point where you have a bot factory, and then even adding new technologies like machine learning and OCR, ICR on top of that. So we're going to address part of that side of the journey, but we're going to address that through the one side that oftentimes gets overlooked and neglected, and that is getting good governance in place to make that scale happen and make the scale happen smoothly. Because going from a pilot to scale, if there are flaws in your implementation methods when you're building 1 bot, when you scale up to 10 bots and 50 bots and 100 bots, those flaws then get multiplied. So good governance is very important. To have a good, solid center of excellence, it's something that we're going to describe here in just a moment, will help you to build that scale while minimizing the risks associated with it, and helping to maximize your return on investment. So on the governance side, we're looking to build that COE. We're looking to get our teams enabled in doing the work that needs to be done, and building towards getting back the value that we need. The ultimate goal is to work both sides, the technology side and the governance side, up to getting a good, strong electronic workforce in place that can be assigned a multitude of tasks to help throughout the organization. Now, getting RPA at scale, the first step that you really look at when it comes to scaling is, how do I find those tasks within my organization that I intend to automate? Because until you identify the tasks, you can't build the bots, you can't get the bots running into production. So in the beginning, we tend to do what is called just ad hoc discovery, meaning that we're looking around at different tasks that people do, and we're going to find some of those obvious tasks that are time consuming, easy to identify, just by asking a business unit for some examples. But that's going to help you to find less than about 5% of the actual opportunity that is out there for RPA to do. And you're going to be able to automate only a small fraction of the tasks that your people do. So we want to build our opportunity analysis mechanisms into something that's a little bit stronger than that. So the next piece is getting into what we call the targeted opportunity identification. So finding opportunities by looking into each business area for opportunity ideas. Now, we do this typically by using workshops. And with a workshop, what happens is you're going to go into a business area and sit down with some of the leads in different process areas and identify opportunities. It's sort of in a little bit more of an end-to-end method by going through, like the beginning of an invoice process all the way through to payment. By doing this in different areas, we can get, maybe 5 to 10% of the opportunities from an organization. But RPA can work a little bit more than that. As we begin to integrate RPA in with other process improvement mechanisms that we have within the organization, and build the COE as something that augments our lean or other methods of finding process improvement, you can find a significant increase in the processes and the ways that RPA can work alongside the users. When you get to the fully integrated mechanism, that means that as you're building processes, you're actually going to be thinking of what humans can do and what RPA can do as you design processes around both. So, common mistakes. As organizations scale, there are some common mistakes that organizations make, and these are some of our solutions that we use based off the experience that we've had with different customers. Think big, start small, scale quickly. It's a very simple phrase, but oftentimes organizations will scale too quickly, which means that they haven't really perfected their method of quality within their RPA organization, and they begin to scale quickly and suddenly learn that they're spending way too much on each bot that they're creating. The other problem that happens with not scaling quickly enough is when we do a pilot and we don't get the right lessons learned in place, sometimes the company will hesitate to scale. So getting the pilot done, getting the initial RPA work done, analyzing that, and then streamlining your process. Once you feel comfortable in the process, that's the point to scale quickly so that you're not losing out on value. Instilling shared ownership. RPA cannot be implemented just by IT, and RPA cannot be implemented just by the business. When I show you the COE model in just a moment, you're going to see that the COE model integrates both the business and IT into one centralized governance model, and it requires both to really get traction behind RPA and get it built up. That's why a focus on solid governance is very important. Not only do you need to have a good understanding of what's happening in the RPA program, but we need to have responsible people in different areas, in talent, change management, in technology. All of those pieces come together under a good, solid COE to govern the RPA program. Certainly, we want to plan ahead for new types of risks as we develop RPA program. The change management, the security management are all very important to include in here. And it's definitely beneficial to work with an experienced partner to make sure that as you get to each step of the RPA journey, that you're planning ahead for what the next part of your journey brings to you. Value capture is part of the RPA program. We're typically implementing RPA and automation for the purpose of getting increased productivity and getting a return on our investment in the initial RPA work. So it's important that as we're determining what our potential savings can be from RPA, that part of the process is that we actually are capturing the value that we're getting and that we're seeing in real time what those bots are bringing to us. And then the last piece is to build the complete suite. I can buy RPA software from UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, or any of the leading platforms. And what I have is a good, solid RPA platform, but its capabilities only go so far. So any good COE needs to look at the technologies that are going to be brought in with that. Do you have use cases that justify getting into machine learning, OCR, ICR technologies, chatbots, natural language, email processing? These are all things to consider. So for our RPA program and a complete holistic view, like any other project, we need to make sure that everybody is aligned on the strategic vision. What are we looking to accomplish? What is the purpose of us implementing RPA? What are our goals? The governance is necessary so that we have standardization through the work that we're doing, that we have a good, solid target operating model, so that we can wind up with the quality standards that we need met. But we also are working with new technology that is changing over time. So it is important to build in that innovation component so that we can bring in newer technologies, but bring them in such a way that we're not wasting money on technologies that won't be used, but instead finding the right technologies to augment our work based upon use cases that we have. And then, of course, the value capture and value analysis. All of that leads to success within our automation program. So what does a good COE look like? We've identified six factors, six facets of responsibility within our RPA COEs. It starts from the top, opportunity analysis. If you can't find the right tasks to automate, then it's hard to find success within your automation program. You have to be able to, quote unquote, feed the factory. So there should be an opportunity analysis side to the COE, identifying opportunities, making sure that they're appropriate for RPA, making sure that they meet the technical and complexity requirements for RPA, and probably a steering committee that involves technology and business within them. And we'll talk about the responsibilities within that here in a moment. For development standards, most of the RPA programs have basic development standards to work through their bots, but for every organization, you're also going to want deployment standards. You're going to want infrastructure and security standards. As you add new technology, you want to, if I add in machine learning, I want to make sure that I have standards and practices around the machine learning methods that we're going to be using. That is an ongoing and an evolving process. So having those standards in place makes sure that you have quality and standardization between all of the different facets of RPA work that might be done at scale. Without those standards, you're going to get a very mixed bag of results. Change management is necessary from two sides. We have change management from the technology side. So when we implement bots, we want to make sure that they are integrating with the systems that we are automating, and that we are integrated with the change management processes that are in place. So if somebody is updating SAP or PeopleSoft and updating some screens that might affect the bot's usage, that our change management is integrated with the organizational change management to make sure that we are aware of those changes and can adapt accordingly before it breaks the bots. Change management also includes people change management, meaning we have to introduce people to the bots and make sure that people understand how to interact with the bots, how to get the results and see the results from what those bots do for them. There's a facet to the COE on bot management, and what that gets down to is once we've created tasks for these bots to run, we want to build them in such a way where the bots can run as much as possible without human intervention. But it's important for us to watch these bots over time and make sure that we have enough of a development quality to where it's not causing us to have that human interaction, to where we're not having to go and clean up after the bot. And then also to watch the utilization of the bots. What tasks are being assigned to what bots? How much time is that taking up? Are we making the most efficient use of our licensing, etc.? Value analysis. Every COE needs to have the value analysis, and the value analysis should happen over time, to where the COE should be reviewing what tasks have we built for the bot? What have we spent on that? Is it bringing us back the value that we had intended? Are we gathering the right information to report back to the stakeholders the value that we're getting? Are we achieving ROI? Are our intake standards accurately identifying the value that we're looking at for opportunity, or do we need to change how we're doing our opportunity analysis to find better value? All of that should be an ongoing thread within the COE so that you learn over time. And then the final thread is emerging technologies. When I see that we're building bots and we come across problems that the RPA technology by itself can't solve, like, for example, receiving unstructured emails. If I'm seeing enough of those use cases, then the COE should be able to identify that okay, now at this point, I need to introduce some new workflow technology or some new natural language processing technology that is going to help for me to read those unstructured emails. And when that happens, I need to make sure that I'm going to include the development standards. I'm going to include the right change management around that. So the pillar of emerging technologies is important to be able to build the scale and to build more out of your RPA capabilities. So as I said, RPA success really comes from the business and technology teams working together. And what I have here is basically a responsibility a plan where the COE is going to be working with different facets of the business, and there should be different sets of responsibility here. So for example, the COE is going to be looking at the strategic plan for process discovery. Which business units are we going to look in? Where are we going to prioritize our efforts? But you're not going to find processes to automate without working closely with those business units and getting into accounts receivable or HR and talking to the leadership, getting the leadership on board, and also talking to the line managers and making sure that they're able to help you to find those right opportunities, and having a steering committee made up of business leaders to identify value and priorities on what's going to be developed. COE might work closely with the technology teams on building the standards and practices so that they integrate well with other technology work that's happening in the company. Technology and business both closely involved with the change management aspect of this. Oftentimes companies will work with a third-party experience provider like Capgemini for building the standards and practices, working with the bot management, working with the innovation and the evolving technology to build up that capability. So as we look at building RPA at scale and getting the most out of that scale, there's really three aspects that we want to think about. Scaling out is finding those new opportunities out there that are just right for RPA. Scaling up is making sure that you have the development capability and the technology capability necessary to deliver those new opportunities. And of course, the last piece is finding value. We want to try to keep the ROI curve of the money that is invested in getting these RPA tasks developed. We want to keep that ROI curve as short as possible. Typically, target is under 1 year. So RPA typically starts in an organization in finance or perhaps supply chain, because those are obvious places where you can find opportunities. There's a ton of examples out there on the internet of different places where RPA has been applied, and we show some examples of where we found a lot of different success in invoice processing, purchase orders, reconciliation, certainly things of that nature. But in any organization, you want to start looking outwards across the organization, and you'll find opportunities. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail here, but in human resources, customer service, technology, your business operations, legal department, sales and marketing, all of these are places where we have found really good opportunities for our clients. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's also going to be industry specific and organization specific things that we can go into. And I guess the lesson to learn here is that almost anywhere within your organization, you'll find the types of tasks that work well for automation. Some parts of the organization will have more, some will have less. And a lot of that is really linked to the screen time that employees spend, because RPA and automation are automating the things that happen during that screen time. So how do we get into a new business area? Typically, as we work our way into a new business area, so let's say we're opening up with sales or marketing side of a company, for example. we usually start off with a RPA 101 for leadership. The first couple slides of this presentation are similar to that RPA 101, where we want to show leadership what RPA can do for them, maybe give some examples of where we've found success through other parts of the organization, and really get that leadership buy-in for a given business unit. Now, that leadership buy-in is very important because we want to motivate the business unit to connect us with the right managers, to spend a little bit of time to look at their processes and find those opportunities where time may be saved. So after the RPA 101, we look for those business unit leaders to connect us with the manager level folks, somebody who's at a level where they understand a little bit of detail of the processes of what users are doing, but still high enough of a level to where they are looking at a more holistic picture of an end-to-end process. And through workshops with those managers, we start to identify good target areas for RPA where we can get into some deep dives. The idea is to build some success within a given business unit. If we can find a few good opportunities in a given business unit, like using sales or marketing, for example, so we might find some great places where we can save some time on gathering marketing data, or maybe do a task where we're reaching out to social media in a way and reviewing or scanning reviews that a company has had in a way that they just wouldn't normally hire people to do, and show them the success of RPA in that area. That will usually open up a business unit a little bit more for getting into that strategic transformation and those 4 levels of opportunity assessment that I had showed you a little bit earlier. So when we start to get into the higher level of process discovery, we have 2 tools that are typically available to us. One is process mining, and the other is process discovery. And I wanted to explain each a little bit because you'll hear the terms as you start looking into how to expand out your process opportunity assessment capabilities. Process mining usually uses software to observe what users have done. So if I'm using SAP or Oracle or PeopleSoft, the process mining software will plug right into the database, and it will look at the audits of what has been done. What path an invoice took through the software, what reviews happened, what users work with at given times. It gives us great insight into the work that was done, and you can see graphs and charts of all the work that was done. But it is specific to a platform. So it can only really mine where it can see the data. If somebody is taking some information and working it through an Excel spreadsheet on their desktop, or there's part of a workflow that's not exposed to the system, it's not going to see that through process mining. So that's where we involve process discovery, and that's actually more of a people-to-people way of finding processes. We're actually going to talk end to end. From the very beginning, and like in SAP, if you have order to cash, we're going to start working from orders and work all the way through the process and talk it all the way through the end to cash reconciliation. And each point in between, look at for your particular organization, what is the utilization, how many people are doing a particular task, what is the nature of that task, how tedious is it, how much human interaction does it take. And in those tasks, using our evaluation criteria to determine suitability for automation. The result of both of these tasks is that you're coming up with heat maps, and the heat maps can then be turned into priority lists for automation. So what this looks like when you're working with a bot factory is, on the left-hand side, you have sort of the long list, all the different pieces of processes that we might be looking at an evaluation. We want to make sure that we've run that through a high-level RPA assessment evaluation criteria. We use about 26 little criteria about each process idea to kind of narrow that down into what would be good viable candidates for RPA. Once we have that narrowed down a little bit, we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive. And that can be spending about 30 minutes to an hour looking at each process and getting some really good numbers and statistical information about that process and technical information to narrow down technical feasibility obstacles. When all of that is done, then you have the processes that you can start to automate, and that should go through a steering committee, and the determination should be made on priorities to be done. But when you're talking about taking RPA to scale, all of that has to happen before anybody starts doing any development on the bots. So if you want to keep your development costs down, what you want to do is you want to have your whatever your number of developers are kept busy at a given time. In order to keep them busy, it means that you have to have your documentation in place. To get your documentation in place, it means you have to have prioritized your automations. And in order to prioritize your automations, you have to have gone through the long list and the short list. So we need to make sure that we keep the flow about as even as we can coming into to our opportunity assessment. That means you can't reach out to the whole organization in one day and say, hey, give me all your opportunities. You have to do it in a little bit more of a strategic manner, always keeping that queue of automations just filled enough to where there's just a little bit of backlog to keep your development teams busy and keep it efficient. So as we build to scale, we also look towards measuring and tracking value. Now, as far as tracking value for an automation is really just the cost that it takes to put the automation in place versus the savings that you get from the automation. But savings from automation is not always so simple to measure. It's not necessarily that I have saved an employee's worth of efforts, therefore I've saved X amount of hours. A lot of times that savings measurement is going to translate into other less tangible factors. So some of the things that we look at is resource scarcity. Bots can do work that might be too time consuming and costly for human workers to perform. So what we want to do is we want to put bots in place where we're freeing up human workers to do some of the more intricate tasks. They might be filling tasks that it's really hard to find talent to do. That's going to add a little bit more value to the bots. Accuracy. If humans make mistakes, then not only are we saving the time that the humans make on a particular task, but we're saving the time it takes to fix it. We're saving the reputation with the customers who may be affected by inaccurate information being entered into the system. We might be saving compliance and fines that may be paid by inaccurate information. So these are things that all contribute to an accuracy value beyond what you just get from the hours saved. You may be able to do things that humans are not able to do as efficiently. So sometimes getting an increased response time can make a huge difference. And we'll see this a lot like in accounting departments where there's a lot of things that have to happen in your accounting and your finance at the end of the month or end of the quarter or end of the year. And suddenly everybody gets really busy and timelines are critical. By putting bots in place to help with some of this work and some of the tedious effort that happens during that time, you can actually decrease some of the turnaround time for the work that's happening. And that also comes with its own value. And special cases, by letting bots handle the tedious work, freeing up humans to deal with some of those special cases, some of those things that need a little bit more intervention, and may actually increase customer satisfaction and increase loyalty. That's an important aspect to the bot. The bot may not be doing that customer interaction, but it frees up users to pay a little bit more attention to those things that can really use some human interaction. So what does all this mean to us? Well, in the end, it really is down to a look at value. So what we want to do is we want to keep our investment costs lower and build up our return value as much as possible. The sweet spot for RPA is when the return value that you're getting back from your bots is more than what you've invested into your RPA program up until that point. And some organizations, once you get past the pilot and get into the factory, you'll realize that within less than a year. RPA has a fairly rapid turnaround on ROI because it is a lower, it's an incremental investment, which is getting a exponential result. So we look to lower the cost of automation as you apply a COE, as you apply good governance. You'll see the chart on the left shows that your bot development cost over time is going to decrease. And this is just not what it takes to develop the bot, but it's the whole, it's accounting for all the numbers. What does it take for people's time and the process intake, in the testing, in the development, and the deployment? All of that time with good governance can be really streamlined into something that cuts your costs, probably from the pilot to the 10th implementation, cuts your costs by maybe 50%, depending on what you spent in the pilot and how the learning curve is going. The goal is, by cutting the cost, by having the expertise and the governance in place in the beginning. The chart on the right shows if we can keep that blue line, the investment, low in the beginning. We don't want a big, huge bump in the beginning in investment before we're getting our return value. So if we can keep that investment line low in the beginning, return value will catch up with it quickly. And once you get to that point, your RPA program is at scale and has paid for itself. So I'm hoping that this information is proving useful. We have applied this to clients over the course of the last 5 years, and a lot of what I've shared with you comes from lessons learned and from seeing the results of what we're able to put in place with good, solid governance, and really a focus on strategic results. So if you are looking for more information, please feel free to contact me, rick.noack@capgemini.com. My email address is on the screen, and I thank you very much for your time.